Welcome back to The Pulse. This afternoon, our first story, the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT, is this afternoon charging the John Dramani Mahama administration to attach the same seriousness and tenacity adopted in dealing with the energy sector challenges. Now, it deals with challenges facing the education sector as well. The education front is faced with a series of challenges, with high school struggling to feed students and colleges of education forced to postpone its reopening for the second time following turbulence on the industrial front. National Secretary of the Conference of Heads of Assisted Schools, Primus Barrow, said the situation in some senior high schools remain troubling, with many facing food shortages despite receiving limited supplies.
Are still in very dire situations. Even with the supply of some food items. Admittedly, some food items have reached out to almost every school in this country. But I'm saying dire because what is actually needed to run or to feed the students is still woefully inadequate, especially for schools that are found in the northern belt and some in the middle belt and south. There's still, like, apart from rice, typically, if you take a place like Upper West, Upper East, apart from rice, they do not have any other cereal. You can't talk about maize. You cannot talk about millet. So it is rice and nothing more. You go to what is used to make the soup. Some schools, for a long time, including my own school, don't have a single gallon of oil. So my matron, for example, will rely on things like margarine to do, and the margarine is finished. Next week, if I don't get margarine, there will be nothing to stand in for oil. So the situation is still, we are still not out of the blues, and the situation is not a uniform situation. Some are a bit okay, others are okay, and some are still in dire needs. So that is how I can describe the situation as far as food is concerned. All schools in this country are in the position to be able to manage the situation. And the key word, the operational word there is manage.
And when manage here means what exactly?
You will just be able to provide something for the students. You'll be able to provide something that is available in your stores for the students. And like I gave an example of my school, I do not have anything apart from rice. So I'll be able to provide something rice, breakfast, lunch, and supper. And that is true for almost all the schools in Upper West and in Upper East. In some cases, they may have some other food supplements, other food items to supplement. So the situation generally is not too good. It is not up to our expected standards.
Well, General Secretary of the Ghana National Teachers Association has also charged the current government to collaborate with previous government and take the matter seriously.
Now has the goodwill of the people, and it is my hope and expectation that they will not wait until this goodwill evaporates, because you see, there is something about goodwill. It is just a matter of time. If you do not manage the goodwill very well and the goodwill disappears, the rest will be anger, okay, and demonstrations, and it will be something that you cannot hold it. For the Ghana National Association of Teachers, the matters are the educational front. They are issues that are critical. They are critical, and we are hoping that the president will, as soon as possible, get these matters resolved so that we can take it out from there. Because any delay, look, we will be hearing rioting, demonstrating, and all those things in the schools. We all know the consequences of putting children in a house or in an enclosed place, and you tell them you will not give them. The churches have done their work. We have told the duty bearers that there is no food. If they sit back and allow this matter to escalate, then they should have themselves to blame. They should have themselves to blame, and that is why we are even talking about it. And I hope His Excellency will do whatever he can do. The same speed with which has been attached to the energy matter, the same speed should be attached to this particular thing. The same speed should be attached. When the energy matter came up, we have seen that suddenly committee has been constituted and everything is being done to get the matter resolved. I want to believe that in as much as we are hearing that the children have not eaten and not, I want to believe that the duty bearers will not be telling us that it is not something that is serious. They should not wait until venting our anger. Nobody should come and blame us.
Meanwhile, as many as 93% of respondents in a Joy News WhatsApp poll are urging John Dramani Mahama-led government to review the free senior high school policy following escalating food shortages in senior high schools. The poll conducted on January 9 garnered 1,179 participants. My colleague Isaac Kofi Ajay joins me in studio with details of the poll results. Kofi, I definitely love it when you are in the studio. Right, what has really, let's even go to why you decided to conduct this poll.
Well, I mean, the free SHS program, according to the Afrobarometer report, is one policy that almost about 8 out of 10 Ghanaians, when interviewed, want it to stay. And in fact, it was actually on the lead up to the 2024 election. And you could realize that this is a policy that Ghanaians want to stay. And if you look at another question that was asked about review, the same, situation was that a lot of Ghanaians also were asking for review. So it was on the basis of this that we decided to look at this unscientific social media poll. And so we are not saying that this is the general view of Ghanaians, but the sample that we have is what we are speaking to, the over 1,100 people who participated in the poll. And just like you said, about more than 93% of the participants said that, look, the free SHS needs some sort of review. We had about 36 saying that it should stay the same, or I think 43 saying that it should stay the same, and about 36 people decided not to, decline to answer to the question that we asked on social media, or to stay the same. And so, I mean, you could see that this is a policy that Ghanaians actually love, but in terms of how should it be implemented, Ghanaians also are asking for review of the policy because they deem it to be appropriate. I mean, it should come. And if you look at the ministry's budget, for instance, education is one of the ministries that costs the country a lot, especially when it comes to the free SHS program. And maybe we'll be going to that angle, but what we are learning is that per the poll that we have done, about 93% of the respondents want some sort of a review to the free SHS program.
Okay, and so the 93 didn't even give reasons. I know it's a poll and it doesn't allow you to want to give explanations and all of that, but you have done a lot of work in terms of research and all of that. Let's classify it a little bit more. What really are some of the reasons that many Ghanaians have been raising why they think that it should be reviewed?
I mean, just like you said, because it's a poll, I mean, you are not able to, you don't have the luxury to quantify some of the views, but per the comments under that post that we put on social media, you could see that a lot of people were concerned about feeding. And then also the fact that that is the possibly the most expensive part of the whole free SHS program. And then also looking at the fact that this last year, for instance, we had a number of feeding stories around shortage of food in free senior high schools, and then also the fact that, remember the Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa alarm bell on expired food that was actually distributed in schools. So looking at the comment that we got from under the post, you could see that a lot of people were concerned about feeding, the cost of the feeding, and how children were being fed, because the bigger problem has to do with not just feeding people, but are you feeding them with food that is appropriate, or are they going to be well nourished and all of that? So the main challenge has to do with feeding, and that's what we can actually get from
the budget that was allocated to the ministry, previous government, you say that a big chunk of it went to feeding, especially for
the free SHS side.
Okay. Yeah. However, the institutional suppliers also say that there's some amount that is outstanding, and so institutional suppliers would include uniforms, stationaries, and all of that, and so that is even a separate budget.
Yes, it's a separate budget.
Right.
I mean, So you see that. Looking at the Ministry of Education's budget, which is running into some 30 billion Ghana cedis, you will see that free SHS takes a huge component. It's more than 2 billion. You need more than 2.5 billion Ghana cedis to run free SHS every year. And you put it right. We've spoken about feeding, stationery, and other costs are very important. And and they weigh down the budget, because if you look at the free access program, if you're a day student, you are entitled to a meal. If you're a boarder, you're also entitled to a meal. And almost all the students, about 3.3 million students who have benefited from the program so far, have all enjoyed free, not just free tuition, free feeding as well, and then also they've not paid for textbooks and uniform. So you could just see or quantify then the amount of cost that the government would have to bear in this period. Catering for the stationary cost of 3.3 million students isn't a joke.
Stay with me, okay? We're going to be doing this in a long while, but I'd like to take you back to Kanda, where my colleague Maxwell Agbagba is on standby. That National Prayer and Thanksgiving Day at the National Mosque had started a bit earlier, and Maxwell has a wrap of what has been happening. Okay, unfortunately, Maxwell is not ready, but we'll take you as and when Maxwell is ready to bring us a wrap of what's been happening prior to the president's delivery. But let's come back into the studio. Kofi, you have been letting us understand that if that 93% of the polls that you conducted represents the larger Ghanaians, this will mean that that's the whole country calling for a review of their policy. Now, you've also worked a lot, and we have seen that the government is setting up, the current government is setting up a committee to look at a holistic approach of the review. Top of your mind, really, this review should include what?
I mean, I think that the first person who gave us a clear indication of what possibly the NDC will do when it comes to a review was former Finance Minister Seth Tekpe. Unfortunately, he couldn't get to retain his job in Mahama's second coming. But you could see that he is really, keen on free SHS, especially the cost element, and saying that, look, if people can pay, allow them to pay. And just like the way the Mahama administration started a free SHS program and felt that at that point in time, I remember I was somewhere around, I think second year or third year in secondary school when I witnessed the free boarding, the free day student. I mean, if you were a day student, you weren't paying anything, somewhere around, I think, 2015 or so, when John Dramani Mahama started that program. And so they believe that make it progressive. Even if you want to make free as just free entirely, it should be progressive. We should move from the day student angle now to talk about even the boarding student. Because yesterday, for instance, I was actually, I actually visited one of the schools like Nungwa, SHS.
Hang in there. We'll go back to that,
sure.
Nungwa SHS. But let me take you back to Kanda, where Maxwell is having a conversation with Muntaka Mohammed. Take a listen.
When you are giving us a day, it always serves as a dividing factor. And we cried to him, telling him that if it's turned into 2 days, it will help us to settle the issue of uncertainty with regards to the lunar calendar. And we are very grateful that he's made a promise and is assuring us that once Parliament settles, this is going to be sorted out. And we are very, very grateful. One other thing that is very, very important to us, as you may know, as Muslims, a lot of people keep their money under the bed. You won't believe it, because they don't believe in a banking system that has interest and what have you. Now to have promised that Islamic banking is going to be permitted, I'm sure it's going to help the Muslim community not to keep their money under their beds, but to make them available for national development. Because as you know, the banking system is where people go to borrow to be able to develop. So when a lot of people are keeping their money under the bed, it disadvantages the nation itself. So to introduce a banking system that is Islamic is going to help us retrieve all the monies that people will ordinarily have placed under their beds. You know about our children and the ability for them to be able to get themselves educated. One of the reasons why there's so much poverty in our community is the lack of education. And one of the things that hindering the education, especially the girl child in the Muslim community, is this issue of their veil and the ability to be able to properly cover themselves. Now, yes, even the last time I was president, it was part of the fight to make sure that we liberalize it. I mean, I keep saying it. You go to a place like Islamic University and they want the Christian girls to wear veil. And I said, no, it's wrong. We are in a secular state. Just as the Christian girl or the Muslim girl should be permitted to wear her veil in a mission school or what have you, so should it be in an Islamic school. Don't force the girls to wear hijab. So with all this, we are very hopeful. It's going to bring inclusiveness. Because you go to our market, I mean, we sit as brothers and sisters without identification of who is a Muslim, this is a Christian. and we do everything in our homes. So we are very happy. Most of the promises that he made during the campaign is telling us and reassuring us it's going to be fulfilled. And we are very hopeful that in the implementation, we as people, the whole of Ghana, will unite to know that it is about uniting us, not dividing us.
Yeah. Before you go, we've had the first batch of ministerial, lists. We're still waiting with bated breath the announcement for the leadership of the majority in Parliament. I want to find out from you your take on these two ministerial appointments and then the leadership in Parliament.
Well, these are processes, and I mean, he's saying that he's going to do all this within 2 weeks. So I think that it's only fair we allow the president some time. I mean, others have used more than a month to even do it. He's assuring Ghana that he will do this in 2 weeks. I'm very optimistic. Let's trust his judgment. I mean, he's made a lot of promises about 60 ministers and what have you. Let's not stampede him. Let's not push him. Let's allow him to reflect on what he wants to do. And I'm very optimistic that based on the capacities that he has within the whole lot, he knows where to place who, at what time, and what role to play. So let's not stampede the president, and let's just remain hopeful that we pray that he puts our best foot forward. And everybody acknowledges the first 3 ministerial appointments that he mentioned are solid. And we are all hopeful that they are up to the task, and we pray for wisdom and guidance that they will be able to perform. In much the same way, we are praying that the rest that may be coming will be our best foot forward, where we will be sure that we'll be able to carry the load that has been bestowed upon us.
But finally, before you go, who do you think should lead the leadership, in Parliament, the majority?
That's the decision of the party leadership and the caucus, and it will be too early to be stampeding. And let's allow them time to be able to sort all this. But I'm sure, at the end of the day, the right decisions will be made.
Okay. But you faced stiff competition in the Asawase constituency. Tell me, how were you able to pull through?
Well, people have always said that, and I've always said that. Look, it's an opportunity to serve. And I believe that once you are sincere and very hardworking, the people will surely reward you. I'm only grateful for the people of Asawase to have continuously elected me 6 consecutive times. It tells you a lot of work has been done, a lot of trust. I mean, you keep to your word, you keep doing your best. Look, people do not expect you to solve all their problems, but they want to see the sincerity with which you are doing it, and the commitment and dedication. And I'm sure, over the period of these 2 decades, I've consistently shown, yes, I'm not capable of solving all the problems, but constantly I've shown with tenacity and effort and truthfulness and sincerity that I am there for them. And I'm sure that's why they rewarded me, and I'm always grateful to God and grateful to them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for talking to us. So you just heard from Asawase Member of Parliament, Munsaka Mubarak, the National Muslim prayer and Thanksgiving just ended here at the National Mosque at Kandap. Tomorrow, the Christian version of this will be taking place at the UPSA at 3 p.m. But very important announcements, very big announcements made.
Well, I see that my colleague there was just about to give you a quick announcement. We promise we'll take that announcement and deliver it to you duly. But back in the studio here on The Pulse, I've still got Kofi Ajay. Now, Kofi, yesterday, Kofi Asari of Education Watch made some suggestions and said that we asked the question of the feeding, which is a challenge. Should the government make it a new policy, all right, so that parents can at least pay a certain percentage of it? Could it be 20? 30. It shouldn't be that this is a clarion call. It's more than being a policy so that we go by it. Kofi Asari thinks that, he thinks that for the private schools alone, if their parents are made to pay for their food, that is at least 30% of the cost. And that is where we should start for. My concern, however, is that on the delivery of the quality-free SHS that we've been asking for, private schools have been asking that they are also included, because what they're doing is they're at least apparently helping the government.
Yeah.
Do you agree that in some of your findings and your readings, have you come across the possibility of allowing the private schools stay private and not getting help from government and still maintaining a quality that we're hoping to see in the public schools?
Well, I think we should start from the feeding aspect, where it isn't just about the money. It's not monetary alone. It's also about the supply chain, where almost at the moment everything is centralized and it is government and government alone. And the schools have become, at the last end of the supply chain. And that has been the bottleneck it's a major issue. So if you take away the layer of cost and other things. Supply chain is also very, very important. There are currently bottlenecks, and that has been created by the nature with which the past government actually ran the free SHS program. We know hitherto it wasn't so. I mean, headmasters and mistresses were within the equation. I mean, they were all in terms of the supply chain of the free SHS, or of providing food to the senior high schools. Now you have just government and in a centralized point, and everything has to come from government. Even if you have problems, you have to wait for government. And when you put it that way, and you do not put the headmasters and mistresses in the equation, when there's a challenge and they can even find alternatives, what they will do is that, well, we'll sit, because that is the problem of government. We'll sit and wait for government. They will keep sitting because nobody wants to commit their money and not get it back later. So I think that, first of all, we need to take that cap of centralization from the whole supply chain. Then we'll begin to talk about including private schools into the free senior high school, domain. I feel that the private schools should be kept out of the domain of the free senior high school. Now I'll explain why. Because for me, I think that they serve as a shock absorber to the free SHS program. We know, whatever the case, there will be certain things that certain parents will not like. And then the private schools are supposed to serve as a shock absorber for parents who are not happy with the process, who are finding alternative. But if the entire color is blue, then how about those who want green? How do they find it? So keep the private schools the same way it is. Maybe the best way to rope them into the free senior high school is to subsidize their operations. Right? So if government really want to bring in private schools, there is a way they can do it. Private schools are calling for help because of cost. So if they are calling for help because of cost, then government should look at that side of subsidizing private schools. Now, talking about subsidy, another question is that government have that fiscal muscle to carry out the subsidization. The simple answer is that it is difficult. Because I said that if you look at the 27 ministries that we currently have, the most expensive ministry to run is the education ministry.
Interesting.
It costs the state about 30 billion Ghana cedis to run the, Ministry of Education, right?
Okay.
Now, if you take away free SHS, you will see that the biggest cost component of, even if you segregate SHS, senior high school, let's say basic school and tertiary, it is the basic school that takes the biggest component. It needs more attention. So what happens is that because we have limited, resources, when you put so much attention to free SHS, what happens is that there's an opportunity cost on the side of the basic school who needs government the most at the moment.
Right.
So allow parents to come in, allow the PTA to function the way they used to function. And I think that if you're able to do it that way, then we should be able to come to an equilibrium. It shouldn't just be government running the whole show. It should be a partnership between the PTA, government, and then even private persons who wants to come. The same way we want to look at the last aspect of ECG by privatizing it. I think that there's a room for privatization in terms of the whole free SHS agenda.
I think we're both looking forward to that committee that's been set up to bring another, maybe borrow the energy word, roadmap to reviewing the education sector as well. You will stay with me. Why? Because we will revisit the conversation of the 60 ministers as to how feasible it is. As Dr. Sasansi says, that the president can actually even run. He can actually even run the country with
19, right?
19. Now the governance experts say that no, it's not feasible, because what's going to happen, and what we discussed the last time, it will create a hip or a ballooned down there and then a small top. So a triangle kind of government. And then, so we'll look at that data and how you've been looking at that. But still back on the education, some parents who called into the Super Morning Show yesterday were concerned and also strongly expressed their support for a review of the free SHS policy, advocating for financially capable parents to contribute to the awards fees.
Can pay, should be allowed to pay, and we should rationalize the process. How can a buffer stock, go buy things and distribute the whole country when they can get, the schools can get it. Let us scrap the whole idea of buying from buffer stock. Let the schools go to their local market. So we have fed them from the local market before they came to school. There should be a special department maybe under GS to look at importing the importable items like the tin tomatoes and things they need to import, rather than giving it to people who add their profits to it. Somebody has to go into audit of who manages the supply of the food. You know, there are canteen people who are pilfering food. We know all over the years. I have never ever understood why the country will say for somebody like Jospon, Sian, Dr. Sian Japan, Ibrahim Mahama, Nana Akufo-Addo, their likes, and MPs and chief executives. I've never understood this, that their children should enjoy free education. They, at least, reasonably, they have some coins. They can pay their children's school fees. We have thousands and millions of them in Ghana. This free SHS thing, the problems were there from day one. It was envisaged. Professors of high repute have spoken. They were all shunned. They were insulted and blah, blah, blah. Now we are back to the same problems and the same square. Well, the problems are there. Buffer stock here, food here, this here. The best solution is that Mahama shouldn't cancel it. It's already been brought upon Ghana. We have oil money. It shouldn't be cancelled. The schools should be day schools. More schools should be day schools. Once the day schools are there, people will be fed from the house.
Still on education and particularly on the feeding issues, Chairman of the Bono East Regional Chapter of Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools, Charles Douglas Solomon Nyaman, has bemoaned the inadequacies in food commodities in the various senior high schools across the region. He noted that most schools are currently forced to feed students with unbalanced food items due to the shortage of some staples, and this, according to him, is adversely affecting teaching and learning. Anna Sabit visited the Ekumfi Amayao Senior High School earlier today and filed the report.
Senior high schools across the country have resumed after the Christmas holidays, with most schools plagued by financial constraints leading to severe food shortages. Here in the Bono East region, the situation remained dire, with almost all schools lacking some specific food commodities and students forced to eat one type of food item that is available in the school's food stores. Chairman of the Bono East Regional Chapter of the Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools, who doubles as the headmaster of Ekumfi Amayao Senior High School in the Techima North District, Nyaman Solomon Douglas, shares with us the food situation of the various senior high schools across the region, describing it as inadequate.
The food situation in the school is not adequate. I will use the word inadequate, but we have some amount of food in the school. In the region, we have 3 centers. For Techiman Center, we have rice. The major food that we have as at now, as I speak, is rice. So you can imagine that the food is one-sided. When you go to Nkransa, the same situation.
The situation means schools across the area are forced to feed students with unbalanced diets, and this, according to Mr. Nyaman, is worrying.
You have breakfasts, which is very light. Your expectation is that the lunch will be heavy and the supper will be heavy. But here we are, if you are taking rice for your lunch, in the supper, you are supposed to take, let's say, rice balls. It's the same food line item that you are supposed to take. So this situation is not helping issues.
Even though the Ekumfi Amayao Senior High School is currently having some amount of sugar, Mr. Nyaman says important commodities like flour, oil, beans, groundnuts, amongst others, are out of stock for some time now.
We have some amount of sugar. What we lack currently is flour, oil, fritters. This is how they call it, but we have red oil. For beans, it is difficult to find. The reasons we get are that they are very expensive in the market. For groundnut, it's very difficult to find these days. If you have groundnut in your school, you can vary it for so many things. Groundnut soup, groundnut stew, so many things. But groundnut is difficult to get.
He adds that the absence of these commodities amounts to reasons why Charles is appealing to parents to support their wards with food items when coming to school to complement the little available.
These are the situations. And these are the reasons why we are saying that, pleading with the parents that anytime that you are coming with your child, try to give your child some little amount of biscuits, some money, shito, gari, and a little thing, so that when the child goes to the dining hall and the food is one-sided, the child could balance it when the child goes to the dormitory. Not that we don't have food. We have. Else the children could have gone home right long time. Some amount of food is in the school. But the adequacy of it is what we are talking about.
Despite the numerous challenges, Mr. Nyaman Solomon noted that management of various senior high schools are putting in place measures capable of helping provide students with the best education they deserve. Anna Sabit, Joy News, Tichiman.
Still on education, residents of Asin-Jobin in the central region are taking matters into their own hands to ensure the safety of school children by constructing a 6-unit classroom block. Currently, students walk a considerable distance on a busy road to reach another community, Odumase, for their education. Parents and guardians are worried about the safety of their wards and are finding a lasting solution to this. Mohammed Nuruddin has more in the story.
The main street towards Asin Odumasi DA Basic School, a route many children take every day. While the school is closed for the day, this road continues to serve as a vital pathway for students, many of whom walk to and from school despite its risk. In recent years, tragedy has hit this very road. 3 children have been knocked down and killed by vehicle while on their way to school. Ajua Sofo is a former student.
5 school children were struck and killed by a vehicle while crossing a curved road on their way home from school. 3 of the children lost their lives in the tragic incident, which occurred 8 years ago when I was a child. I witnessed it at first hand, and the road remains extremely dangerous.
Ajua's words reflect the growing concern among residents. Local authorities, including community elders, share the same worry. Akwasi Opong is one of the elders of the Asin-Jobin community.
Our children walk along this road, which is hazardous due to the many vehicles that pass by. Recently, a tragic incident occurred on this stretch when several school children were struck by a moving vehicle, resulting in some of them losing their lives.
For 4 years, Benny Sowusu has been teaching in a neighboring community, but like many here, she is deeply concerned about the safety of young children who walk alone to school.
I'm saying that because of the road. Obviously, if you look at our city like Accra, you can see that they have pedestrian way from people that can walk. But if you look at this place, that one is not there. And then a child like this, I've been always complaining. If you ask my colleague, I've been always complaining. Even me, myself, I cannot even walk from here to here. 10 years, 9 years, even 6 years. You'll be seeing them with this road. It's very dangerous. So at least if they have the school here, that one will help them.
At a recent homecoming event, funds were raised to begin constructing a 6-unit classroom block. The community is actively seeking additional sources of funds for the project, which will bring much-needed educational opportunities closer to the children of Asin Joabin. Nana Amponsa is the regent of Asin Joabin.
But I did see any so I said, man, say, Asin Hayasha, Yene, your school.
The primary goal of organizing this event is to address the fact that Asin Joabin is the only community without a school. Building a school here will significantly contribute to the future development of our children. And when we are no longer around, these children will remember us for providing them with the opportunity to learn. Education is crucial, and without it, a person has no future. This is something we refuse to let happen to our children.
One of the community elders, Kwame Tibua, emphasizes the importance of education in any thriving society.
It is in your scratch and Kalano free as a war. Jabihona, a bit me abua.
Once the school is built, it will allow children to begin their education at an early age. This will also ease the burden on parents who currently have to take their children to the farm and market, as our community is primarily focused on farming.
But more support is needed. The community still requires at least 500,000 Ghanaian cedis to fully construct the 6-unit classroom block. Until that goal is met, children in Asin Joabin will continue to face dangers on the road to and from school. For them, safety is not just a wish, it is a right. A report by Mohammed Nuruddin.
You're watching The Pulse, so go for a quick breather. When we come back, we'll have a conversation on the promise of Mahama promising to run a lean government, possible or a political promise. Stay with us, we'll be back. Welcome back to The Pulse, and Kofi Ajay is still here with me, but let's tell you why Kofi Ajay is here. Stakeholders are divided over President John Mahama's promise to run his government with just 60 ministers. Mr. Mahama, in the lead up to the 2024 presidential elections, promised to run a lean government to ensure a more efficient and effective system of governance while protecting the public purse. Now, speaking earlier on News Desk, a political scientist at the University of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Asante, said President John Mahama can actually run his government with 19 ministers, with each appointee playing double role. Here is what he had to say.
Yes, I agree. If we place a cap, we find a certain number which is fine. Well, we should do that so that we reduce cost in this area. I have just put down my 19 ministries, and I want to...
Please share them with me. I'm curious.
1, finance. 2, interior. 3, defense. 4, trade. 5, information. 6, local government. 7, attorney general. 8, education. Youth. 9, roads. 10, 11, gender. 12, health. 13, foreign affairs. 15, labor. 16, chieftaincy. 17, agric. 18, youth and sports. And I still have 1 more. We can do that. We can do that.
You still have 1 more left.
So, yeah,
what of the regional ministers?
The regional ministers are going to be in here. We are going to select 16. So a minister will hold 2 portfolios. He's a minister of state and a regional minister. Yes, because we've seen that. Remember Kufuor's time, there was a problem, and Mr. Deborah, Deborah was made a minister, and he was also supervising a region and all that. It's done. We can do that, and then the civil servants will support us. 19, no deputy minister, and then we are good to go.
But local governance expert Andres Vidiako disagrees. He says the promise, though feasible, will hurt the grassroots and may cause job losses at the local front.
What kind of savings are we talking about here? Is it about salaries? Because when you scrap these ministries, all the technocrats, all the civil servants who work in this ministry, you cannot sack them. So their salaries will be paid by all means. So are we talking about savings or the money that we use in paying the minister or his deputies? Is that the savings that we are talking about? Because these monies that we are talking about, when the ministry is removed or is scrapped, definitely these monies will be given to the emerging ministry that you have created. And those monies are going to be used. So I don't see where we are talking about savings. Because when you take, let's say, Minister of Foreign Affairs, for example, away, and you leave Minister of Local Government, there are people who are supposed to be working, or there are people who were working at the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and they are technocrats. You cannot sack them. So the savings that we are talking about, what kind of savings are we talking about? That you are preparing to go to opposition. I tell you.
So you are looking at the political angle of it.
Yes, because, my dear, you see, if you are a politician, what you need is that you need power to implement your policies. If you don't have power, you can't implement. If you have all the good ideas, intentions and purposes, whatever, and you don't have power, you can't implement it. So the aim of every politician is to get power. And if you want to step on toes, because Doctor is an academician, I understand him, but looking at the kind of politics that we do in Ghana and the institutions that we have in Ghana, I don't think we have gotten to a point that we think we need 90 ministries to run this country. I don't think so.
Well, my colleague Kofi Eje is still in studio. I know that a lot of people are quite excited about, and it will be mostly even the outgoing government who will be excited that, well, let's see how you're able to cut it. Because then the belief of if somebody voted for you, they should be paid back in a certain form of way, rewarding sort of. And so who is going to be out of it and who's also going to be on the list? Generally, before you even go to your table and bring us the numbers, which one of them do you agree? The governance expert or the political analyst, Dr. Asah-Asante or Andrew Vidiako? Who says that?
Yeah, I think at the situation we are in at the moment, I'll side with Dr. Asah-Asante because it's about cost cutting. And we should remember that the John Dramani Mahama administration has made a number of tax scrapping policies, which means that a gaping hole will be created. So you need to find a substitute to fill that. It does not necessarily mean that you should go and create new tax handles or overtax certain people to fill that gap if you really want to scrap the taxes. It could also be about expenditure rationalization. How do you cut certain expenditures that you think that are weedy and you do not need them? How do you cut that to save for the space you've created? So I think that looking at the fact that we are simply under an IMF program, and government cannot take the unilateral decision of scrapping certain things and would always have to find alternative. It would be good to do some savings on this governance side and use that as a token to do the negotiation with the IMF. Because if you listen to the finance minister nominee, Dr. Kesha Atafosin, they simply want to extend the current IMF program to maybe about 2027 or 2028. Okay. The NPP administration did it, and we do not know how that is going to be. It simply means that if you do that, it will come with new austerity measures, it will come in new conditions. How do you feel in that? So at the point where we are, we need certain cost-cutting, exercise or policies. So I will side with Dr. Asah-Asante more than possibly with the other people who spoke on the issue.
Okay, let's get into it. 60 ministries. What do you have for me?
Well, so I think that we have to make it clear. President John Dramani Mahama did not promise to scrap any ministry.
Okay.
He has also not promised to scrap or to merge any ministries. What he has promised is that he is going to operate a lean government, which they interpret as a government that will not have more than 60 ministers and deputy ministers.
Okay.
So we are asking ourselves, look, why would John Dramani Mahama choose to run such a lean government? The notion is to cut costs, right? So if you are cutting costs, then what is the cost at the moment, or what's the current cost that John Dramani Mahama is looking at and is horrified, is so horrific that he wants to cut it to make some saving. And that is the figure you have on the big wall, 84 billion Ghana cedis. That is what it takes to run the 27 ministries that we have in the country, from the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs to the ministry, the most possibly the most expensive ministry, the Ministry of Education.
Okay.
These
do you know that I would have thought, not to catch, I would have thought that with the introduction of the they subsidizing or they taking the cost of dialysis would have ballooned the Ministry of Health and all of that.
In fact, maybe when we go to that aspect, you will see that the Ministry of Health is also not that far away from the Ministry of Education. But what we are saying is that it is this figure that the NDC has seen. This is what we picked from the 2024 budget, trying to understand how much it costs to actually run the 27 ministries. Remember that at a point in time, we had more than 30 ministries, different institutions being ministries. And President Akufo-Addo said, look, some of them are done serving their purpose, so we have to merge and scrap some of them, bringing the number down to 27. So the big number is 84 billion Ghana cedis. That is the cost at stake. That is the cost that John Dramani Mahama is looking, and he's asking himself, how is he going to bring this down? So what we did was that, I mean, we've been analyzing all the ministries, but we were also looking at the top 5 ministries that are very expensive to actually run. Yeah. And there you have it. The Ministry of Education, we've spoken about it, is the most expensive ministry to actually run because of its angles and what you do in there. The free SHS program is in there. There's also the basic education in the tertiary. And mind you, the Ministry of Education employs one of the highest civil servants and public servant teachers. I mean, it has a number of workers, so its wage bill is very, very big. Usually, it is the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health combined, GMA and whether not or whatever, when they come together to say that they are going on strike. That is when you see the government really working. That is why they are the 2 most expensive ministries to run in the country.
When you say expensive to run, you mean the day-to-day activities.
So what was their budget?
It's not even that the things that they do.
They do necessarily.
Necessarily. Yeah. It is just the building in there, the people that walk in and out, the people that do the day-to-day work in there. That's the budget allocated.
That's the budget. So usually it will comprise of the compensation of the employees there, cost of goods and services, because definitely they will need stationery, they will need so many things. And then also if they are doing any capex. But ordinarily, usually you will never find the expenditure line item for capex really being realistic in most of the ministries. They actually depend on grants and what have you to be able to do them. But majority of the money you see, or significant component of the money you see on the screen, goes into paying the workers who are in the ministry or who work for the ministry directly or indirectly. And so third position definitely will be the Interior Ministry, because security is very, very important. The Interior Ministry, there's also the police service in there, right? So you have a number of the services under the Interior Ministry. So I was not surprised when we ran the module and the Ministry of Interior was third. You need about 8.4 billion Ghana cedis to run that ministry. You also have roads and highways, possibly because of capex, right? And some of the equipment they use, all of that. So if it's at fourth position, I'm not so surprised. And the cousin of the Interior Ministry definitely will be the Defense Ministry, being number 5. So these are the 5 most expensive ministries to run according to the data that we got from the 2024 budgets from the Finance Ministry. So if Mahama is looking at rationalizing, cutting costs or anything, he will be looking at some of these ministries. But also, I mean, the ministries actually exist based on a certain, purpose, right? There are ministries that are supposed to be for just administrative purposes. And there are actually 5 of such ministries. So if you are actually looking at combining or merging a certain ministry, you need to look at their similarities. How compatible are they? How can you, merge them? Some of them may exist in different portfolios, but merging becomes possible. But predominantly, if you really want to merge, you look at it whether they fall under the same bracket, right? So for administrative purposes, there are 5 ministries that have been set up for administrative purposes, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Finance Ministry itself is predominantly for administrative purposes, to local government, to Ministry of Information, to Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs. Now, if you ask me, these 5, right? I mean, one of the guests was actually asking us about cost and savings and what have you. The reason why savings is important is because Mahama wants to cut costs, to be able to find ways and means to also scrap other tax handles. Because just like we said, when you're going to the IMF, you don't go empty-handed, you go with an alternative, right? So I want us to do this. This 5 ministry we have on the big wall, I don't know which one you think that we can actually merge, but I think that maybe we may see the Ministry of Chieftaincy later on in another bracket. But I think that you can actually merge the Ministry of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural with the Ministry of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs. I don't see why there should be a local government ministry without chieftaincy, because it's actually the chiefs that make up the local areas. It's where it starts. So if you really want to merge them, then I think that you can merge these 2, right?
So, as you've said, he has not promised to merge any ministry, as you have indicated. So he's looking to run 60 ministers. Currently, do we know how many ministers that are run already?
Yes, there are about 86 or 85 ministers that the president, former President Akufo-Addo actually worked with in his second term, right?
Okay. It's good we don't know the fact as to whether he's going to be merging, because then it will mean that he's only saving us the payment of a little over 20 ministers.
Exactly.
And that will not amount to that 84 billion that we're hoping to save. We're hoping to save that 84 billion if there are some measures, some confluence. Yes. Now, if we're going to be merging anyway, your promise as well as also on the 60 ministers, what happens to the chief directors and all of these people that are under
Exactly. I mean, in fact, if you go into the cost of the compensation of the employees of almost all who belong to the ministries, you will see that it is the salaries and wages and salaries that is the main problem, right?
Ah, right.
Not just the minister. The minister sometimes is just 1, 2 people, right? The minister and his deputy. But the ministry itself, operating that ministry itself can be a bit problematic in terms of cost. Because if you put out a ministry, you need to appoint a chief director. You need to set up the records unit. There should be other departments, right? And you have to budget for all of these ministries. They need to get vehicles, they need to get drivers, they need to get cleaners. There has to be a building, electricity costs. We all know how ECG was, fighting some of the ministries, how they should pay their light and what have you. So it's not just about the minister. That's why we are talking about saving, because if Mahama is just reducing the number of ministers without it affecting the cost, the current cost, then I think that it is just a cost 90 job.
Okay.
So if you are reducing the ministers, it has to actually reflect on cost-cutting measures. You need to really reduce the cost of the current 84 billion Ghana cedis that are required to operate all the 27 ministries. In fact, we've not even added the 16 regional ministers.
Yeah, which is also a debate.
Exactly.
Does it include the 60 ministers? Does it include the regional ministers? They are called ministers, but are they ministers as well?
Yes.
And so, okay, you were on your way to trying to merge, top of your head. So you're thinking that Ministry of Local Governments, Decentralization and Rural Development, yes, is merged with what?
It should be merged with Ministry of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs. I think that both should not stay, because we already have National House of Chiefs, right? So I don't see why you should have a different ministry which should not be under the Ministry of Local Government.
This ministry, I'm actually even surprised, is running on 2.61 as a budget, because if I understand what governments usually will say, we want to decentralize resources. When we have a policy, the major concern is how do we trickle it down, which means that if I look at the value chain, it will be a lot of because you don't just jump from the top to the down. And this is why we have had many people complaining that everything is centralized, though they are saying they are operating a decentralization system. Everything is still centralized, and you don't get to feel it at the bottom here. And so I'm actually surprised. I was thinking that would have a lot more budgets allocated to it, but I can see why you would ask that we merge these two.
Yeah.
Then the information in Parliament.
Oh, information definitely should go back to its old marriage. Ministry of Information and Communication should be merged, right? The two of them should not sit alone because, I mean, just look at the budget for Ministry of Information. It's around 70 million Ghana cedis, right? In billion terms, 0.268, right? But just looking at it, you see that this is for administrative purpose.
Yes.
So you can definitely merge it with the Ministry of Communication. And I know you know the Ministry of Communication building is a very fantastic place, very nice building that can house the Ministry of Information. But you see, as well.
If you're looking to also double the roles of people, it means that Kofi Eje, fantastic man. We've had him in the morning on desk. We were having him today on the pulse. We'd have him definitely at some point before the day would end, which means that you can double to do certain things. So there'll be no point in separating the two, which means that some heads must be cut.
Yeah, I mean, then that brings back the conversation that maybe the current government statistician wanted to have about matching the output of some of the public and civil servants with their pay. That sometimes you have some of these people who go to work. I'm not saying all of them, right? I mean, they work really hard. But there's an argument or there's a school of thought that says that their productivity or their output versus what their remuneration is not actually equal. So if you are merging some of them, then it simply will mean that you also need to top up in terms of the works that others will already do. But for me, I think that there shouldn't be anything like the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs. It shouldn't be a ministry that exists on our books or the books of the Finance Ministry at the moment. You need about 9 million Ghana cedis to run it. Just by looking at it on the cost side, you could see that this is not even a ministry that we should have even set up in the first place. I simply do not understand why we have parliamentary service, we have a whole arm of government for legislature, and we have a Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs. I simply do not know what that ministry does. So I don't think it should be merged with anything. It should simply be scrapped. And that 9 million Ghana cedis that we spend almost every year should be saved there. Now, there are also other ministries that are set up for economic purposes, right? And there are 8 of such ministries, and it costs us in total 7.7 billion Ghana cedis to run all these 8 ministries. I want us to quickly take a look at them. Food and agriculture as one ministry. There's also another ministry called Fisheries and Aquaculture Development. Definitely, you can't have a ministry of food and agriculture and have another ministry for fisheries and aquaculture. Combine the two.
That's what a balance.
Yeah, I mean,
if I buy the grains here, I must get the protein.
Exactly. They are all of the same, feather. So why do you have to separate them? Lands and natural resources, I think, should stay the same. Ministry of Trade and Industry stay the same. Tourism and Arts and Culture stay the same. Energy possibly will also stay the same. So for economic purposes, you could see that all these 8 ministries here are so important to stand alone, maybe apart from Fisheries and Aquaculture, which needs to go back to its parent ministry, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. Just by doing that, if you're able to take this, I know definitely you need to add more people in terms of the labor to the Ministry of Agriculture, but we should be able to save something when we merge.
They can take them still from the Ministry of Fisheries and Agriculture, so
exactly
they just slash them.
Yeah, you don't need a minister for that. And I was actually saying that, I mean, if you merge the two, you definitely would have some savings somewhere.
Of course.
You would definitely have some savings somewhere, because we were doing the costing for the free level 100s, right?
Yes.
And we saw that it is not even so expensive to run that policy compared to the free SHS, because you need about 400 or 600 million Ghana cedis to run it. So if Mahama really needs money, and at the moment, I was saying that this is the first time the NDC administration is tasting governance or tasting power without the flavor of the bond market. There's no bond market. their only local source of financing is Treasury bill. They've never been at this point before. It was actually started under the Akufo-Addo administration where they did a DDEP and the bond market actually collapsed. Now, John Dramani Mahama is faced with just one source of local capital, Treasury bills. And we all know that when inflation decides to come down, you definitely would have to cut the rates. You can't keep the rates so attractive that all the banks wants to borrow to government. If you do that, you are actually stifling the economy. So definitely, just by having that side alone, Mahama should know that fiscal, space is not available at the moment. So whatever he has to do to cut some of the expenditure, he needs to cut them. There are also some of the ministries that are for infrastructure purposes, right? So Ministry of Sanitation, Water Resources, definitely you should know that the next line, Ministry of Works and Housing, the two should be married. I think that's, yes, because when you're talking about, most of the time when you're talking about flooding and what have you, we go to the Works and Housing Ministry talking about drainage and all of that. So the two should be merged. I don't see why we should have sanitation and water resources that takes about almost more than 500 million Ghana cedis of
Kofi, is this your table that is making me understand why I'm always getting it wrong? Because there is roads and highways. There's railways development before the transport.
I don't understand. All these three should be under the in fact, there was even another one called aviation. So there were one ministry, plenty.
You can dare stretch it and have aviation stay by itself, right?
Well, aviation is no longer there. There's no ministry of aviation.
You can. If that one existed and on its own only, and then you merged transports, railways, and well, aviation is still a mode of transport. So I can understand.
It should just be Ministry of Transport, and under it should have department that will take care of
all these
highways, because there's already a highways authority. So I don't see why we should have Ministry for Roads and Highways. Maybe there was a thinking that went to it. But I think that if you are able to merge all the three, there will definitely be some sort of savings that we will be able to enjoy. And sanitation and works and housing should be together. They shouldn't be separated. For social purposes, there are 9 ministries that are supposed to, definitely the most expensive ministry to run is also there, 30 billion Ghana cedis, Ministry of Education. There's no perfect pairing in this mix, but it means you need to take chieftaincy and religious affairs back to its, local government. Take it to local government and have that, combination there. Employment, labor, and labor relation. I don't know, but I think that can stay the same. Gender and social protection should stay the same.
Now
Ministry of Health should
affirmative action is now a law. And the concerns about how it's being implemented is what people are worried about. I expect that this budget, 2.39, that was allocated for the gender, children, social protection, existed when the affirmative action had not, it was a bill.
Now this was actually the 2024 budget. So we expect that this year
it should,
maybe
it should
about
be inclusive, and let us see how.
About 2.5 billion Ghana cedis to run.
Am I being a woman here? Anyway, Kofi, thank you so much. Do you have any more things to show me?
No, I think that in summary, if we are able to add all the savings that we spoke about, I must just emphasize that Mahama has not promised to scrap any ministry. But if he's able to do some of these things, merge some of the ministries, take bold decisions to make sure that this is costing me a lot, I don't need it, let it go. He should be able to save about 3 billion Ghana cedis from this exercise.
Okay, I think you have your last slide.
Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely the ones that are for public safety. Yes, I think that here too there's some sort of savings to be done. 4 ministries costing about 14.4 billion. So protecting public safety in 2024 was expected to cost the country 14.4 billion. So if you see the police people running around with their motor and people directing traffic,
this one.
It is 14.4 billion. Everything, I mean, including the Attorney General's office, defending the country when there's, judgment deaths and what have you. So it costs about 14.4 billion Ghana cedis to protect the public. But I think that in here too, you can do some merging. I was thinking, national security and interior ministry should be one.
Defense definitely on its own.
Yes, defense on its own. But national security and interior, if possible, should be one. And yeah, I think that with that, you can also save some. Because just look at it. Interior Ministry alone, 8.34 billion is expected because you pay the police people, you pay the fire service people. There's national security, 1.16 billion. Definitely, if you do the merging and cut certain things, some savings will be done there.
Kofi, you're a champion. Thank you so much. Now, I'll just draw from your security points where you're landing, and then let's show you the green letter that we're going to be seeing very often since the president started working in his office. So he's been releasing the statement to Dr. Dampare, and it will be on your screen, and let's show you now. It says that Office of the President dated the 10th of January 2025 to the Inspector General of Police, Ghana Police Service, and to Dear Dr. Dampare, request for immediate investigation into the death of 8 Ghanaians during the 2020 and the 2024 general elections. I have been instructed by His Excellency John Mahama to formally request your office to initiate immediate investigations into the tragic deaths of Ghanaian citizens during the 2020 and the 2024 general elections. These incidents, which occurred in various parts of the country, have left a lasting scar on our democratic process. It is imperative that justice is served for the victims and their families. Now, it goes on to say that to ensure the investigations are comprehensive and transparent, we respectfully propose the following. 1, establishment of a dedicated investigative task force. And here's what they'll be doing. Form a special task force within the CID to focus solely on these cases, ensuring undivided attention and efficient handling of this matter. 2, collaborate with witnesses and families. Conduct thorough interviews with eyewitnesses, victims, families, and other relevant individuals who may provide crucial information. And 3, review of electoral security arrangements. Investigate the role and actions of security personnel deployed at the affected polling stations to determine their involvement or oversight. And finally, it says that use of forensic evidence, employ advanced forensic techniques to analyze any physical evidence from the crime scenes, including bullet casting, weaponry, and other materials. Well, it actually goes on to give you the number 5, saying that collaboration with electoral and civic bodies. Work with Electoral Commission and other relevant agencies to review reports from the 2020 and 2024 elections for additional context. And to maintain public trust and ensure transparency, we kindly request periodic updates on the progress of the investigation. This will help to keep stakeholders informed and assure the public of your commitment to uncovering the truth. We're confident in the competence and professionalism of the Criminal Investigations Department and trust that your efforts will yield the necessary results to bring justice to the victims and their families while preserving the integrity of Ghana's democratic process. We assure you the ultimate support should you require any additional support or information from us. Yours sincerely, with a signature, Callistus Mahama, who's the Secretary to the President, and also his attention to the Vice President and the Chief of Staff. The letter has been duly received, as you can see on your screen. But you're watching The Pulse. We will well, let's bring you this on before we go for a break. Now, President John Dramani Mahama has directed his executive secretary to formally write to Inspector General of Police, IGP, to request an update on the status of investigations into the deaths that occurred during the 2020 and the 2024 elections. And that's the statement that we brought to you on the green paper. We'll go for a quick break. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to the final leg of the show, The Pulse. Now, supporters of the National Democratic Congress, NDC, this afternoon picket at the forecourt of the Electoral Commission's Greater Accra Regional Office in protest of the delay in declaring the parliamentary results. The Ablekuma North parliamentary election result has been at the center of controversy as the EC is still unable to declare the final results after 5 separate collation attempts. Now, the constituents, among other things, things are calling for an immediate declaration of Irabna Obin as winner. James Aveji has just returned from the picketing and has more.
As you can see behind me, quite a number of NDC supporters who said they are coming from the Ablikman North constituency. Some, about an hour ago, have gathered here at the forecourt of the EC's Greater Accra Regional Office. And in the last few minutes, I've been interacting with them. What they are indicating is that the Electoral Commission should immediately declare their candidate, Irabna Obin, as winner of that constituency. You know the history behind Ablikman North. 5 different attempts have not been able to give us a winner of the parliamentary elections there, where Irabna Obin and Nana Ekefrie are contesting that the EC last 2 days suspended proceedings because they are not able to authenticate the polling result of some 3 other polling stations. And we have here the constituency director of elections who is on standby to address the media on what exactly they are demanding, apart from the call for immediate declaration of their candidate. What exactly is contained in that statement you want to share with the public and the Electoral Commission?
So we wish to
first tell us your name.
I'm Daniel Tonyega. I'm the elections director of the constituency. We wish to address the true state of the Ablikman North constituency parliamentary elections following the 6th illegal recalculation exercise, even though an initial declaration was made by the same commission. This is the question we want to ask. Why has the RO, the returning officer, resigned and has collaborated by some media stations? Is this a clear case of how some other constituencies were treated illegally to recollate and declared this on behalf of the MPP? Now, why this attempt of appointing a new returning officer to redeclare in favor of the MPP after the EC's own declaration on the 10th of December, supported by the declaration form issued by the EC itself? Now, given the irregularities in the illegal recollation processes and the submission of altered pink sheet, we urge the EC to save itself from further embarrassment and chaos. Madam Jaminsa, we strongly believe that your outfit can redeem its image by redirecting its effort to implementing acceptable processes and procedures. We are calling for a transparent, unbiased process to ensure the will of the people of Ablikman North is considered and respected. In my conclusion, Honorable Irabna Obin is the Ablikman North constituency candidate that was declared. We stand firm in our call for fair, transparent resolution to this, and want to thank you very much, the media.
Let me just pick you on a few of the allegations you throw out there on the issue about altered pink sheets. Your party agent who participated in the the coalition process, as at when there was left with 20 polling stations to be collated, said they do not have any further pink sheet to be provided. How did you then arrive at the fact that the pink sheets that are being used now are actually altered?
Well, I think your question has a lot of questions within the question. You know why? Because I am involved. I am directly involved. We never say we don't. In fact, at a point we told them we have 10 pink sheets we will tender in. And out of the 10, we tendered in 3 on the first day, and then we tendered in the 7 on the second day. And that's where we were able to get them, because we realized that all that they have supplied from the beginning of the process were altered.
Have you been able to tender any in on the last 2 days when they did the 7?
Yes, we tendered in 5 different pink sheets. And we tendered in, and that was not collaborating with that of what MPP had brought to the table. So it shows clearly that whatever MPP had brought from the 37 to the last one were all fake.
What's your direct call to the EC?
Of course, I read it in my statement that the EC must save itself from all these embarrassment. They should do the needful. You have already declared a candidate a winner. Why are you reneging on your own declaration and you want to change and subvert the will of the people? That is not right. We want to call on all the authorities of Ghana to tell the EC, just as they have declared, they should go ahead and make an affirmation to that. That is all. Thank you very much.
And that's the the Director of Elections for the NDC in the Ablekuma North constituency there, calling essentially on the EC to declare their candidate, Rabna Obing, winner of the elections. Quite a number of them are here and trying to get their point across to the Electoral Commission, state home their point on their demand. And so it's unclear how long they'll be staying here to drive this matter home, but we'll be following to know what the response of the EC and the other stakeholders will be to this demand and bring you up to speed on the development. James Savage here from the EC headquarters, the EC Regional Coalition Center here in Accra.
Well, Forum for Public Sector Associations and Unions has called on the President, John Dramani Mahama, to set up a committee to investigate the unlawful attacks on public servants and public properties, while urging the police to bring perpetrators to book. At a press briefing, Chairman of the Forum, Isaac Bampo Addo, said the current situation should be used as an opportunity for public servants, commissions and governments to review appointments and placement procedures to insulate public services from politicization.
Deep concern over the continued acts of vandalism, unauthorized locking of government officers, and the seizure of government vehicles by unidentified armed individuals suspected to be NDC apparatchiks. Institutions affected includes Ghana Health Service Head Office, Accra, Tema Development Corporation, Tema, Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, Tema, National Health Insurance Authority, National Service Secretariat, National Disaster Management Organization, all in the New Dwabin South Municipality. Some other MDAs affected include Tema Metropolitan Assembly, Pon Katamanso Metropolitan Assembly, Gas Central Municipal Assembly, Krowo Municipal Assembly, and Okankwe North Municipal Assembly. In addition, the Tamale Metropolitan Assembly, Awutu Senya East Municipal Assembly, Gomwa East Municipal Assembly, Weja Agbawe Municipal Assembly, La Inkwantana Madina Municipal Assembly, Ganwest Municipal Assembly, Ayawaso North Municipal Assembly, and Ayawaso East Municipal Assemblies. It must be emphasized that these assemblies are the focal points of local governance, coordinating all the public services. Once the work of these assemblies are disrupted, there will be a breakdown of governance and public services. These actions highlight a troubling trend of politicization of systems and procedures within the public service institutions by government, where appointments are skewed and due processes are bluntly disregarded. The situation we find ourselves in creates a useful opportunity for the Public Services Commission and the government of the day to review appointments and placement procedures to insulate the public services from needless politicization with its attendant implications for professionalism and productivity. The Forum, as a result of this, condemns these dastardly acts which are putting our dear country in a bad light locally and internationally, and hereby calls on the police to act immediately on these acts of vandalism by these unidentifiable thugs. We urgently appeal to the President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, to immediately set up a committee to investigate these unlawful acts and bring those found culpable to book. We further urge all political parties to discourage their members, followers, and affiliates from engaging in such destructive actions which only hurt innocent professional public servants serving their country diligently. We call on all public servants and our membership to remain vigilant and report any suspicious activities to the police. We are also going to take steps to ensure that the public services is purged of all undesirable political misfits who have found themselves into the system. We will not endure such attacks any longer due to their presence within our rank and file. The Forum reassures public servants that measures are being put in place to secure affected institutions and prevent further incidents. We will also collaborate with the Ghana Police Service and the national security agencies to ensure that those responsible for these unwarranted attacks are held accountable.
Well, nearly 72 hours after his inauguration, President Mahama faces calls from Nungwa Manche for policy clarity. Speaking at a press briefing, Obuade Noche King Professor Odaifio Wolenchi III urged the new administration to avoid pettiness and collaborate with the outgoing NPP governments to drive national development. He also called on the Mahama administration to prioritize peace, set aside political differences, and harness the potential of the youth, warning they could threaten national stability if neglected.
We expect the opposition to do everything they can to help government succeed, because if government succeeds, then the country succeeds. It's time for Ghana to bind the wounds of division. We believe both parties will have a fantastic, productive, and amazing meeting soon about getting to work to serve as a tribute to the power to the people. Both are supposed to work very strongly on the economy, healthcare, job opportunities, education, sanitation, etc. Even though it is no secret that both have some pretty significant differences. Ghana first. The government must be all-inclusive, bringing in not only working people, but women, minorities, and young people for their energy and idealism. Young people can play an extraordinary role in leading these working people who are sick and tired of being exploited. We want to see an economy that works for all of us, not just the 1%, and advances new trade policies that create Ghanaians jobs, or seeks to make college affordable, or rebuild the country's infrastructure, and not policies to try to divide this country off. What do we need? Love. When do we want it? Now. As traditional rulers, we are quite willing to stand by government of the day side in support of policies that speak to the values of the country. The mission of the government should be clear. Put together the most highly qualified group of successful leaders who will be able to implement the change agenda in Ghana and to begin the urgent task of rebuilding this country, specifically jobs, security, and opportunity. We are therefore calling for a national unity and in putting aside differences to work for a common goal. Ghana has no better example than its veterans. It often lays bare disagreements across our nation, but the Ghanaian instinct has never been to find isolation in opposite corners. It is to find strength in our common creed, to forge unity from our great diversity, to sustain that strength and unity even when it is hard. The opposition should pledge to give the president the space he needs to put together a government. It will be up to government to set up a team that he thinks will serve him, that will serve him well and reflect his policies.
That'll be all for the polls today on the Joy News channel. I am MFA Akosia Adeti. For more news, though, do log on to myjoyonline.com and do enjoy your weekend.